Welcome to the pilot episode of TANC Radio. I'm one of your co-hosts for today, Lucy Boltz, a member of the East of Lake local chapter of TANC in Oakland. In this episode, we're sharing with you the first of what we hope will be an ongoing series of conversations with tenants about their everyday lives and their efforts organizing together and forming tenant councils. Many people experience their housing struggles initially as individuals, but we know that we have a lot more power when we come together and act collectively. This audio series is meant to be for all tenants, whether or not you have yet organized for collective action to improve your own housing conditions. It's meant to give tenants a chance to talk about our living conditions and make tenant organizing understandable, and also contribute to the culture of the tenants movement. We want it to be produced by regular TANC members, definitely not professional podcasters or policy talking heads. So if you're listening and want to get involved, reach out through the TANC communications email at comms@baytanc.com. For those of you who aren't already TANC members, some background on TANC. TANC stands for Tenant and Neighborhood Councils and is a tenant union in the San Francisco Bay Area, made up of tenants who are working with their neighbors and forming tenant councils, sometimes also called tenant associations. We don't rely on any funding other than member dues, and members make all decisions. We use any tactic that we find useful in our organizing efforts, and according to TANC's platform, we are Bay Area tenants who are fed up with rising rents, evictions, disrepair, and harassment at the hands of landlords. We are fed up with our neighbors having no option but to live unsheltered and at constant risk of police harassment. We want to stop landlords, developers, and cops from looting and exploiting our communities.
I'm your other co-host today, Julian Park, also a member of TANC's East of Lake Local. The recordings you will soon be listening to are a recycled, recontextualized part of a tenant inquiry. Tenant inquiry is a method of popular education and collaborative research where the experiences, stories, and challenges that tenants face in their everyday life and in the course of their struggles with their landlords are documented for the purpose of future reflection by organized groups of tenants. In 2022, many members of TANC were planning to attend the Autonomous Tenant Union Network's first in-person convention in Los Angeles, hosted by LA Tenants Union. The Autonomous Tenant Union Network is a federation of member-run, independently funded, anti-capitalist, anti-racist tenant unions from across North America, including TANC. A group of members from several Autun-affiliated unions got together in advance and, following the example of LA Tenants Union, began a process of tenant inquiry. Accordingly, researchers prepared to record interviews with small groups of organized tenants, asking each group a shared set of questions. The inquiry committee then listened to the audio recordings to identify important themes, especially themes that revolved around contradictions or problems in the experience of those tenants. Then, short clips speaking to these themes were selected to be listened to and discussed at the convention. The voices you will be listening to are from an interview recorded in May 2022 in Oakland in the East Lake neighborhood, facilitated by me, though I had not participated in the organizing. In this interview, several tenants of a mid-sized building discussed the living conditions they faced, how they came together to fight, obstacles they faced, what they had achieved through which actions, and what might come next. You will be hearing from Shimar, Zife, Bianca, and Allison, members of 1435 Merritt Tenants Council, a TANC-affiliated council. Though the events discussed occurred several years ago, we felt there was still much to hear and learn from these tenants. In future episodes of TANC Radio, we expect you will hear from more recent conversations. In any case, we now invite you to participate in the tenant inquiry yourself. So as you listen, think about what you hear, think about what you're learning, and think about what you might do about any of it.
The first voice you'll hear is Shimar.
End of 2020, beginning of 2021 is when we started the council. Yeah, because I moved here October 2020 to Oakland.
Zife picked up from Shimar, telling how the tenant council first began getting together.
Yeah, when me and Kuji moved in, there were like a bunch of ants in our unit, and like we moved like mid-December, and when we like met all of our neighbors, and we made pierogies going door to door and offered them to folks. And when we just asked about how people were doing at the building, people spontaneously brought up other issues like, like dirty laundry floor. Like one person, I guess, had a hole in their floor, and there was like, I think all up, I counted, I think there was like 26 issues of just like various things that people had issues with when you combined it. So we mentioned, like I am part of TANC, so it made sense to go ahead and see if people wanted to do something about it together. And so that's how, like, we followed up again, just asking if people wanted to have a meeting, and suggested a tenant association or tenant council could be a way to get things fixed. And that's how I think we got started.
Bianca was one of the tenants who had lived in the building longer.
I got in because my bathroom toilet literally was rotting through the floor. When you sat on it, it would rock, and it was about to fall through. And that was going on year 3, and the management would come and look at it and say, you need a new toilet, and the floor needs to be repaired, and then they would disappear. When they formed the council, or rather when we formed the council, and we sent out the first letter, it took them about a week before they got in there, and they fixed it right away. And since then, I come to the meetings every now and then, but I let the young people do all the work.
Now, did this feel like a change for you all getting involved in this, or was this kind of did it feel more like a natural extension of your life already?
We'll hear from Allison on this first. Like Shimar and Zife, Allison was a newer tenant in the building.
I would say I, pay attention to this kind of stuff relatively, or when I moved into the building and knew I was having several issues, then once the tenant council came up, it seemed like, oh, obviously, and if we stick together, we can get stuff done, and lo and behold, we did. So, it seems, as far as organizing goes, it was a good, first way in for me, just because, the results, we're working for immediate results, and when you get them, then it's okay, then we can keep making steps.
I've dabbled in organizing here and there, not with housing. I'm a social worker by education, so it feels in line with my profession, but also, I don't know, I feel like my detachment from some other forms of organizing have been just kind of the overwhelmed of, world issues, and, it can be really depressing, but, living in an apartment and the issues being really real and relevant and seeming very easy to address or fix collectively feels natural to participate in for me. And Zife mentioned, ants, the ants were ridiculous, and I was very motivated to not have ants in my apartment.
It has made a difference to me. Initially I was I don't want to say skeptical, but I just wanted to, I had to reassure myself that I had to, listen to what they had to say and join in. Because the older generation, I'm going to say older baby boomers, they tend to settle, and they say, well, it's been like that for a while, for all this time, so why change it now? And so I wanted to see what these young people can do, and they really did make a change. And so in that respect, I'm kind of glad that I did take part, because I would hate to still have a creaky toilet sitting in there.
And how would you describe the work that you all have been doing together as a tenant council?
Our primary thing has been to gather or catalog all of our individual but also collective needs, so in individual units but also broader building issues, and present those to the landlords in a unified way through letters, We not recently, but a couple months ago, put some signs up in our windows to petition them as we had a lot of units open, to kind of apply pressure for our collective needs. Besides that, I think we've also just been active in community building within our building, and like hosting social events and just bringing people together. And also, like, since our council has really been an active arm of bringing people together, it also like has delved into some like conflict management or like inter-neighbor issues and trying to, just if you think about any type of group, like a family or a friend group, if something is happening between two of the people in that party, the other people are kind of involved. And so there are times where we're involved and try to help support the people involved in whatever is going on, from some interesting neighbors and things like that. So lots of different things like that.
How would you describe the folks that make up the community here together? Or I guess who's in the community?
We live in a small-ish building. I don't really know, relatively. There's 27 units. There's obviously people who are not interested or want to participate in the council at all. And even despite that, I think we know most people's here's names, or we see them, and we've reached out to them at least. And of people who have participated in any light, I think we are diverse, age-wise, racially, gender, sexuality, all of that. And I think something that Zife was mentioning before is, like, part of what we do is really trying to build consensus, which can be difficult. And sometimes, at least for me, it feels like it makes the process slower. And it's just like, it would be easy if someone's just like, these are the decision makers, and we can just boom, boom, boom. But I think it is really important for us to, like, gain everyone's perspectives and move in a way that feels good for everyone involved.
I'm from the Bay. I lived here when I was in kindergarten, preschool, all the way up to 6th grade. Then I went to Vallejo, then Sacramento. Then I came back. So this is home for me.
In a moment, Shimar will be referring to someone whose voice we ended up not including in this episode. This person requested they remain anonymous.
I just moved to the Bay from Georgia in 2020, like right before we started this council. And I think one other aspect of our diversity is people who have lived in the building. Like the person who was just talking and Bianca, they've lived here for over 10 years and 20 plus years. And there's a lot of us who have been here for a year or less. And I think the veterans of our building add so much information that is really important and helpful for what we're doing. And I think the new people bring a lot of energy as well.
I mean, it seems like in terms of like our demographics, we're just as diverse in terms of people's jobs. I think people do all kinds of stuff. I work in a store, and like other people are in tech and do stuff like that. But I'm from the Bay Area originally, but I also know a lot of people are from other parts of the country and have moved here, and I think it adds to the greater perspective, and everything is good information to have.
Like, I think for me, being from Georgia and like housing there is very different from here, so like my expectations were different, so I came and I was like, this is not cool. So I think that motivates me.
Earlier in this conversation, Allison had shared another relevant point on the topic of organizing as building community.
The main thing that I think of what we're doing is really just like opening communication with each other as a building, because that's the main thing that's like helped us do anything, basically. And just like let us get the full picture of like what is important to everybody living here, and like people's needs should be met, and we all can work together to make that happen.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts about a time that you felt like you saw the power that you all have as a tenant council, and maybe also a time that you felt like maybe that you didn't quite have as much power as you'd need to get something that you wanted.
It did feel like a win when we put up the first sign that some of us put up as a council that Zife made, that was a banana that had ants all over it, and it said, "I didn't know about the ants until I moved in," which literally sounds like it's a lot of our experience. I know me, the first week I moved in, I didn't have any food in my apartment, and there were ants everywhere because of like water in the bathroom, and they were crawling out of a crack in the wall. Like, what? But then it was still several months, and we had requested them to take action for the ants. Nothing was happening. We saw that they were starting to show units more frequently, so we put this sign up in our window facing the courtyard, and they immediately acted. They signed up with a pest control place, supposedly, and started like spraying, and some people actually spoke to this company on the phone, so it's not made up. And like, ants have definitely improved for my unit. I won't speak that they've completely gone, because I don't think that's true either. But at least like something happened because of that. So that was great to see. And like the repairs that we got that had been going on for years and years in people's apartments, that those got fixed like once we sent our first letter. So that was great to see, and like give us a boost that we can like keep building momentum.
Among other points, Bianca spoke about another issue that had gotten fixed thanks to pressure coming from the tenants: street-facing mailboxes that the landlord had allowed to remain insecure for too long.
It literally would just hang open, and you could just walk by and stick your hand on the inside and take someone's mail out. There would be Amazon boxes out in the driveway out here. So getting that fixed, getting that moved into a safe location, and then me getting my toilet fixed and repaired, and the floor repaired. On the flip side, the tenants are still complaining about ants, and I don't see why that's an issue. But the landlord has given us a canned response as to why they can't eliminate the ants.
I think the thing that on the other side of things has been like truly being gaslit by our landlords all the time, even when they did come and address the ants. I mean, we had talked about it before, and at first they were like, there's no way for us to address ants. They're native to California, all this like boo la la. It's better for us to address it when you see the ants instead of taking preventive measures. And it was just like, what? And so then when we put up signs because they were showing apartments, we were deterring their ability to close apartments, they moved very quickly. But in our other letters and petitioning, again, like it's been mentioned, they continue to not recognize us as a council, which is to be expected. But they will reply in these general statements, letters that they send to every person in the building, and say stuff like, we received an anonymous letter from an unknown source. When we've signed our letters, like our names are there, and they're spreading lies, and they're we don't know if you received this information as well, and like using these like weirdo scare tactics, and again minimizing and really disrespecting us, really coming forth in a very like respectful and like professional ways to them about our concerns, and them really just being really rude and diminishing about it. so that's disappointing.
A component is definitely like figuring out how to pressure the landlord, and I feel like that's kind of like a experimental creative exercise that, you know, people are in different spots and have different like sense of risk, and trying to move together while also like thinking of what to do to build pressure on the landlord, which we've done in various ways, is just kind of like part of what we talk about.
Would you say you have a sense of, kind of long-term goals for what you would hope to achieve with the council, or just participating more broadly in the tenants movement, and maybe are there any differences between what you think about in terms of long-term and short-term goals?
It would be ideal if landlords would do the correct upkeep and maintenance on their buildings and keep them up to standards so that people can actually enjoy their lives, that they live in these places that we pay a great deal for. So it's like, for me, I'd like the changes to be made, or I'd like a rent reduction or something. But that's the situation in the Bay Area right now, obviously. Everything is too expensive. But it also just it blows my mind because none of them would live in any of their properties.
We have like the list of demands that everybody had, plus like an escalation ladder. So, eventually it's like going to the other tenants of other buildings with the same landlord to like create greater pressure. And I think that's kind of like, even getting there, I feel like, with like 11 or 15 buildings, given kind of like our capacity, that feels like a medium-term goal. However you measure medium, it's like, oh, we've been doing it for a year and we did start knocking on other buildings, but we didn't make headway and kind of ran out of steam and backpedaled a little bit, I think. So in that sense, short-term and long-term is kind of relative to our kind of unity and urgency. And I feel like, there are people who are active, like the people who are here, but in terms of kind of the urgency relative to the things, it's what's good about the tenant council is you go at your own pace. But that because it's not necessarily people's number one priority at any given time, I think if we were all focused on this and only this, then I think that what I just said with the buildings could be a short-term goal. But for us, it's medium-term, I think. And then in terms of what would long-term be, I feel like that kind of horizon would arise after we reach that kind of other short-term goal to push the things I think that Allison was mentioning, on a bigger level, rent reduction and stuff like that. So I think that would obviously be kind of the thing that makes a lot of sense for most people. But it's how do you really conceptualize getting rent reduction? And I think that's when you start talking about, the fundamental relationship between tenants and landlords and how that operates. So getting there, I think, is a bigger question. And we're not necessarily at the level of strength to actually have that conversation in a meaningful way relative to how we put pressure on landlords.
What sticks in my mind about the long-term goals is that if one of our leaders should up and decide to move, do we have that collective strength or individual strength to step up? Because if one of our leaders just happens to leave and we lose that momentum, we will fall right back into the same rut that we were in. And these landlords, as either Allison or Shimar said, they don't even recognize us. They still attempt to address us individually. And so I'm going to bring up a sore topic or a sad topic, as we recently lost someone here. And had that person attended meetings here and there, but had that person been a leader and they left, there would be that void. So the council has done a great job, in my opinion, of short-term and long-term goals, trying to get the automatic card readers for the washing machine and get it cleaned up, the washing machine area, and having the mailbox moved. But yeah, we need, I think, I worry about too many people moving away who are involved in the council, and then will we the people who are left here, will they be concerned enough to want to keep it going, or things like that.
What Bianca had brought up about the longevity of a tenant council as members move out or pass away led others to also reflect on the challenges of maintaining the tenant council for the long term.
I think sometimes there's just like guilt around fluctuating participation. So like one thing we did this year was on Valentine's Day, we sent out we hung Valentines on everyone's doors with lollipops and a note, and just reminding people we have meetings, and like if you come 1 month and don't come for like 3 more months and then you just show up again, like great, like do that. And so like destigmatizing that.
I would say the main impediment for me is work and my work schedule. And like, I would love to take time off work to do organizing, but like, then I really couldn't pay my bills, which I already struggle to pay. So it's like, I can't. And that's like, I wish I could be more involved with TANC, but they meet starting at when I'm leaving work. And I just don't have I don't have the brain power for a lot of the organizing that I was trying to be more involved until I started the job that I'm at now. And it's also just like, I know like other people have work and life commitments. I'm a person with disabilities. I know other people I'm sure have disabilities that we have to work around, and that means rationing energy and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like, it's not really built into how life is to make organizing easy, and that's for a reason. And the landlords certainly like it that way, and so do employers. So it's all coexisting, and like my desire to unionize my workplace goes hand in hand with the organizing that we're trying to do here and all that. So
I think organizing in general isn't a very common thing to do in whatever capacity. So, and like I also alluded to earlier, I think the quote-unquote younger generation, and I mean, I'm talking about people now in their like 20s and 30s, not younger or older, but I think people have a lot of concern and like compassion towards movements, but I do think we tend to be more, we live in our kind of silos a lot more than maybe like some older generations. And yeah, people just want to kind of address their own concerns and not. And then we're in a pandemic, and life is really stressful, and so it's hard to feel like you are also like committing regularly to this other thing that is like outside of whatever else is going on in your life.
And what inspires you about the work that you've been doing together?
Getting to know about TANC and then the other tenant unions and councils that are involved just like nearby, and the gains that they've made, it's very inspiring and makes it all feels very immediate, which I think is kind of like, even though it's very draining and burnout is very real, it's like there is a bit like there's a fire there that's like other people have it going too. So it's like, it feels like more of a movement than just like we're a group by ourselves.
This organizing for me has made things feel a little bit more feasible for organizing in general, or just in other aspects, or just feeling like there are elements that I can commit to and contribute to without feeling like too burnt out or depressed. And hoping that like through our work we can extend those feelings to other people, and other people will also see like how community building and group efforts can really bring about changes.
That's it for this episode's conversation with Allison, Bianca, Zife, and Shimar of 1435 Merritt Tenants Council. Whether you're listening alone, with some neighbors, or with some fellow tenant union members, we encourage you again to take some time to think about what you heard, what you learned, and what you might do about it.
Keep your ears peeled for any future episodes, and don't hesitate to reach out to Lucy or me, Julian, or comms@baytank.com. That's COMMS@baytank.com. Whether you want to record a conversation like this with your neighbors, or if you just want to help to put together the next edition of TANC Radio. And don't forget, solidarity is our weapon.